I like to run my Sundays as the beginning of my week. And when I get the chance to begin the week with someone who can answer questions, then my week is really looking good.
And the person we're going to put in the hot seat, and not necessarily a hot seat this morning because we're here for discussion and understanding, is our former National Security Minister, Gary Griffith. And he is here in his capacity as a national security analyst. And when we spoke with him earlier this week, we identified his position, in fact, in 2014, in his early watch, because he lasted just about a year and a bit as National Security Minister. Trinidad and Tobago took its most aggressive stance against illegal immigration in our recent history, and it was under his watch. There was some resistance from businessmen, local businessmen, who have always spoken of a perceived, well, there's a shortage of labor, perceived shortage of labor at the level of the minimum wage earners. As a consequence, we have lots of Guyanese, Jamaicans, Venezuelans, some African nationals filling up the workforce, working at private security firms, working at stores in downtown Port of Spain and wherever you can. Minister Griffith is here. We're going to talk about all of this because, as we also spoke earlier this week with Mr. Bishop, this leads on to other issues, illegal immigration. We have the issues of the deportees as well, which leads us to wonder about human trafficking in Trinidad and Tobago and money laundering. So Mr. Griffith, in his capacity as a national security analyst, is here to discuss these issues with us this morning.
Good morning to you.
Pleasant good morning to you all.
It's good to see that you're wide awake after I'm enjoying your football game last night and being optimistic, being intimately familiar with the West Indies cricket team and the wonderful fortunes, well, misfortune they had 2 nights ago. You told me I should take heart because we are, what you said, fickle-minded? We are kind of fair-weathered fans generally in Trinidad, and we should have more heart in the team. Is that correct?
Yes, most definitely. If you recall, when Chicago Bulls, they were a winning team. Everyone had a Chicago Bulls jersey. As soon as they lost, they started using those jerseys to wash their cars. So many citizens in our country, I think we only support winners. And it is unfortunate when you look at the comparison of Chris Gayle, when Chris Gayle was removed unceremoniously by the West Indies Cricket Board from the Prime Minister, Portia Simpson-Miller, go down. The Jamaicans, they stood firm for their player. We had the same situation here when Dwayne Bravo, Karen Pollard and Ravi Rampal were dropped, and not a soul said anything. I was the only person that was very vociferous on it because I realized that it was sheer victimization, and we don't have that kind of passion. In fact, Trinidadians actually started agreeing that they should have been dropped when the stats would have shown that Dwayne Bravo's average was the second highest last year. Ravi Rampal's, he acquired the most wickets last year, but he was dropped to facilitate for a holder who was just not ready for it.
You would get the feeling that I just stepped into your territory. I talk sports, and there you go.
No, I'm sorry. Okay, I'll just close over here. But that's just one of many. But my concern is the lack of passion that we see. I mentioned a team that will be in the bottom of the Premier League in England, and they will have 50,000 persons at their last game to show patriotism. Trinidad and Tobago will only have a full stadium if we are 1 point away from qualifying for a World Cup. I have a problem when people lack passion. I don't just support winners. You support your team to the end.
I am going to disagree with one thing you said at the very top. When the Chicago Bulls were winning, I was still wearing my New York Knicks jersey, and I'm still suffering. All right, we're here to talk immigration. Now, there are a number of issues coming out of this immigration issue. What happened is my first question to you, Mr. Griffith. During your ministerial tenure, you put together a 3-month moratorium for irregular migrants to legalize the immigration status in Trinidad and Tobago. That was put for the period November 17 to February 20th. Tell me what happened with that whole concept, putting it in place, and what kind of success, if there was any, where did it go?
Well, I think since I have left, the ball may have been dropped in some way. I did a lot of homework. Many people, they attacked me. And I always promised myself that when as Minister of National Security, my job was not to do what was politically correct, but to do what was right. And on many occasions, there will be things that people will not understand, and they will condemn me for it. But the end result showed that every single decision I made, there was a system in the so-called madness. When we look at the problem with immigration, when persons, even the politicians in Jamaica and other persons, they said that I didn't get it. They didn't get it because they lacked the political will, they lacked the knowledge to understand that immigration policies such as the CSME, it does not facilitate for your your borders to be like a equivalent to a shopping mall where anyone can come in and come out. And you can look at the situation right now. The ultimate reason for it is terrorist activities. Because of the situation right now with ISIS, it is mandatory that we need to secure our borders, not just from the illegal ports of entry, but for the legitimate ports of entry.
I had the opportunity in New York to speak to the Jamaican High Commissioner on that question, Consul General, correction, on that question when the Jamaican issue came up, and it was not so much the legality of it, because they conceded, as most folks looking at this objectively would concede, that you were right. The position taken by Trinidad and Tobago was right. The tenor, the manner in which it was done, is what a lot of people seem to have a problem with. I just wanted to make
and again, the facts will show that again it was totally untrue, because there was 13 Jamaicans, they were denied entry. Individuals in Jamaica, they jumped on the bandwagon and started condemning Trinidad and Tobago for doing their job. When the facts will show, of the 13 persons, it ranged from this firstly. Persons, they did not have work permit. They did not know who was their employer. They did not know where they were going to live. They did not know where they were going to work. They did not. Some lied and said that they were going to work with someone. When we called the individual, they did not know who the person was. Some of them had criminal records. A lady came. She said she came to drop her son to see his father. The father never turned up. So they were all facts to show that these persons should not have been allowed entry. And in the same manner, when persons from the Caribbean go to North America, even with a visa, and they're rejected, there's not a word that is said. It is what I did was to put a stringent approach, because we have a serious situation where 1 in every 10 persons, Rennie, 1 in every 10 adults in this country is an illegal immigrant. That is madness.
There's about 110,000 you're talking about. It does make a statement, one, about the bodies responsible for protecting us from an immigration standpoint. I mean, if you have that many people coming in. But it goes into a number of things. I just want to stay on course in the beginning here to make clear to our listeners, where are most of these illegal immigrants coming from? Because I got some numbers coming from the former Attorney General Anand Ramlaghan, where he's saying that Trinidad and Tobago has deportees, and this is as far as deportees are concerned. The majority of them are coming from Guyana. He says Jamaica is way down the line. The problem is, to me, however, if you have 734 Guyanese deportees happening during the period 2010 and 2014, it is a general problem, I concede. However, are we not looking at what is causing this many people to come in and settle from one particular part of the Caribbean? And that was part of the discussion that took place with the Consul General in New York. He said, well, look at the numbers where they're coming from, and look at the problems he had was the link of illegals to crime. Now, you know, and I know, the stats are going to tell us there is a correlation. But he is saying, if you have this many people coming from our South American neighbor, why are Jamaicans being singled out? I don't want to make the Jamaica situation, I don't want to relive that or go into that again. I am asking you, if we have this many people being deported from one part of the region, is the proper energy and manpower being put to stop this?
Yes, and definitely. Well, going back to the first point, it is not that Jamaicans are singled out. It actually, quite ironically, it goes right back to the start of our conversation with Chris Gale. The Jamaicans have a strong passion and solidarity for their people. So if you touch one Jamaican, you touch all. And that is the difference. So when the 13 Jamaicans were deported, they raised a hullabaloo over it. But because it is that Jamaicans were touched. Guyanese, there will be 2 times that amount on a daily basis probably. And the Guyanese will not see anything. The Nigerians, they would not have said anything until Mr. Cambon started giving false information to say that Nigerians were being targeted. When again, I showed the stats to show that his statements were totally false, totally misleading, and on the borderline of being reckless. So everyone will have their rationale. The Jamaicans, because they defended Jamaica, Jamaican nationals. But the facts will show that we have a situation throughout. What has happened is, over the last few years, North America and Europe have become more stringent than ever to deal with persons entering their shores. And that because of that, persons, especially in the Caribbean, they will now turn to the next available point for the life of milk and honey, and that being Trinidad and Tobago, and that is a fact. So persons from Guyana, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Grenada, Jamaica, Africa, they will come to Trinidad and Tobago. And what has happened before, and I'm not going to blame other ministers of national security or whatever, that is not my job. My job is what I noticed, that there was a big problem. We were very relaxed in the way we were having persons come into the country, and that is what caused the problem of over 100,000 persons entering. What happens is that they enter, stay through CSME, they'll be here sometimes for 2 weeks vacation, and they don't ever come out, and then we cannot find them. When this happens, what it does is, first, it puts a burden to the Treasury, because we now have to see about housing, medical, school, and all the other schooling and all other aspects that will support the individual. Secondly, by the person not being registered, it means that he's not paying taxes, and that means that is costing the state billions of dollars annually because we have persons here. So this is not a matter of us just wanting to get rid of 110,000 immigrants. Many of them are good, hardworking persons, but they must be regularized, because if they are not, then we do not know what they are doing.
That is what a lot of folks say, that it must be made clear always when you speak of illegal immigrants that they are not linked to criminality. The former Minister of National Security is our guest. He is a security analyst. We are dealing with the area of immigration because he took a very strong position while he held that. I did ask of the question of the number of Guyanese deportees, 734. What is going on that we have such a heavy flow coming from Central America, neighboring country, Venezuela? Guyana.
Easy access and similar to Jamaica. And because of the CSME, many persons think that the CSME means it is an open door for anyone to enter any island as they see fit. That is not the case of CSME. In the CSME, we allow an easier access for persons to go to different islands over a 6-month period. However, your immigration laws in your country will stipulate, one, you can't prevent persons from entering if they are going to be seen as a liability to the public purse, which means that they are not employable, they do not know where they're going to work, where they're going to live, and they can become a burden to society by being on the streets. Or B, more so, if they are deemed as a threat to national security. There are 30,000 foreign terrorist fighters from ISIS in over 70 countries. Trinidad and Tobago is one. And this means that terrorist activity is a fundamental concern worldwide. And the best way to deal with this is to make sure that our immigration laws are very stringent to ensure that persons cannot slip into a country where they can become sleeper cells. And that is the reason why it is we have to be so stringent. Had we not done this, the country would not have been aware that on January the 1st, we were on the borderline of being issued with us having to have UK visas for us to travel to the United Kingdom. I had to put out all stops, turn night into day to stop that from happening by putting many different regulations and different requirements, inclusive of that aspect with for us having more stringent approach on immigration. Had I not done this, we would be having visas. We will require visas being issued for us to travel to the United Kingdom.
This was because of the fear of those willing to sign up with ISIS and these organizations.
That, and also the fact that Caribbean islands started realizing that if you travel, say, from Kingston to Gatwick, you were being monitored. So they started coming to Trinidad and Tobago, stay here for a few months, and then try to use Trinidad and Tobago as an in-transit point to get to Gatwick. And with that, the British government started seeing many persons started using Trinidad and Tobago as an in-transit route to remain in the United Kingdom, to become illegal immigrants, or to be involved in drug transshipment.
Bringing it back home now, because, excuse me, while we've been talking a lot, we've named almost all the Caribbean islands here. Visibly and highly visible is a large number of Venezuelans who live and work in and around Port of Spain, and I don't know how far it would have gone to other parts of the country, as well as every part of Trinidad. There are Chinese business mushrooming. These don't have the advantage of the CSME, CARICOM Skills Certificate, okay? And why we seeing them every day, we're wondering, okay, are they here illegally? Why are they not targeted as well? Not that I'm being specific about them in their other countries, because your statistics also tell us about people from Indonesia, Bangladesh, from India,
yes,
and Dominican Republic as well, which, as we on the issue of the Dominican Republic, which borders on the issue of people being brought into the country illegally for different reasons, bordering on human trafficking, if that's what it is.
Yes. Well, within the year while I was there as Minister of National Security, I was pleased to state that Trinidad and Tobago, we were upgraded on the watch list by the United States in human trafficking. We were upgraded from Tier 2 watch list to Tier 2 based on many different initiatives we had put in place. That was never done before. So there are many different positives that we saw within the last year. Now, going back to situations such as the Venezuelans and the Chinese. Now, there's a difference with persons who are illegal immigrants. They enter, they sign the document to state that they will be leaving in a week or two, and they do not leave. That is the 110,000. However, there are tens of thousands of other persons who are not citizens of this country, but they enter Trinidad and Tobago based on a authorization given. I do admit that the Chinese, for example, they will come in a grabs of 50 to 100, but businessmen will sign documents to give authorization and requesting for these persons to be employed here over a 1 year, 2 year basis. We can look at all the Chinese companies from Huawei, Shanghai, and all of these other companies that are involved in construction in the construction business. But these individuals documents come to the Ministry of National Security to give authorization. Now, with the same manner that the same thing can be done for all persons who are from the Caribbean or Africa, but it seems to be a more structured approach for a lot of businessmen to find a way to bring in Chinese labor. Now, there's another concern that causes even another domino effect with criminal activity, has to do with money laundering and the casino situation. Where if you go into central and southern Trinidad, there are more Chinese restaurants than anything else. How much Chinese food can one eat? And so it is not just a case of the Chinese restaurants just popping up all over the country because of the great demand for Chinese cuisine. It is, we do know for a fact that many of these organizations are used as a front for money laundering and illegal gambling.
But it's not speculative. You say you know it for a fact. Begs the question, then why have we not moved in on this?
And I did. And because what happened, let me show you how simple this goes. You go to the Chinese restaurant, and this is not to attack all Chinese restaurants before I'm sued for criticizing all Chinese restaurants. You will say you want to purchase a Coke, a Macassin, and a Sprite. A Coke is number 1, Sprite is number 2, Macassin is number 3. Everything is $5. So it's $5 for a Coke, $5 for a Macassin, $5 for a Sprite, Lucasade. Everything is $5, but it's a number. So you purchase 3 Coke at number 2. You purchase 4 Macassins, which is a number 4. You purchase 5 Sprite, which is a number 7. So you have that on your slip. Then what it is that they're doing to beat the system is that whereas the NLCB, you get the odds of, what is it, 31 or 32 to 1 or whatever, they give it at 36 to 1. So and again, billions of dollars also being lost through this type of, and again, it goes right back to persons entering Trinidad and Tobago who are not citizens and they're involved in illegal racketeering.
Let me just roll you back just for a moment there. The government-to-government contracts where expertise is brought in, that has nothing to do with this fallout of the Chinese.
No. This is
these are contract people
right.
who are contracted independently. So, and you said, for instance, that you take a very dim view of businesses who employ people who are here, illegally beyond this day. This must apply here, because if an arrangement is made by me to bring in X number of people and the terms of the employee or the necessity of their presence is over, I've finished doing what I brought them here to do, then it should be my responsibility to report to your ministry. They're no longer with me, or your ministry would have asked up front how long you need them for. I say how long for, and the ministry should be keeping a tab on them. Is that not the way it should work?
Most definitely, and in fact, sometimes the businessmen may be using a front of construction, but they're really bringing in persons to get involved in the
Which leads me exactly to my point. Let's talk about the business people. Why are we not seeing a couple of them in handcuffs? I thought they would look very nice with the chains around them.
Well, I was just en route until I was fired for deciding to speak the truth in a matter.
Tell me, break my news here this morning. Go ahead and let's talk about that, because at the end of the day, it is always what is the umbrella being used to keep you from being wet? And if they can stay back here out of status, going to the criminal endeavors they are doing, I need to go back to the helm. And the helm is the guy who brought them in. And how is he protecting them? What kind of extension is he getting for them? And if he is not doing that, then the ministry is sleeping. Yeah,
and definitely, and that what I did. I opened that Pandora's box, and I was hit for 6 by the business sector. The business sector said, "How dare I try to stop what they were doing for years," which was actually. There are many persons of the 110,000 illegal immigrants. The majority of these persons are workers. But when they are working, what happens now is that because you are an illegal immigrant, you're not paying taxes. It means that you do not have a union. You're not represented by anyone. So many businessmen who have these illegal immigrants, they use them in a similar manner to indentured laborers, where they could tell they find them, they pay them below the minimum wage, and we cannot allow that. But businessmen attack Gary Griffith because what I was doing was stopping something that was also illegal, and that was an abuse of anything that could be righteous, when it is that you are looking at. This is similar to human trafficking, and these individuals know it's tantamount to slavery. So I was under a lot of pressure by members of the business sector by what I was doing, because they knew exactly what it is that they were doing.
Just that we are clear. This is the former Minister of National Security, Gary Griffith, who's with us this morning, and you were saying that you were on the threshold of dealing with the problem, those who are being the shelters for illegal folks who may be involved in criminal activity, and that you believe is one of the contributory reasons why you were dismissed.
No. I was dismissed. Had nothing to do with this.
The door opened. I just wanted to see.
My dismissal had to do with me deciding that as I requested for all citizens of this country, if at any time you can assist the police in any matter, do not turn a blind eye and be part of the process to solve the problem. It would have been hypocritical of me to be telling the country that, and then when I was put in the same position, just to be a witness to assist the police to pinpoint if any criminal activity had taken place, I had no intention to turn a blind eye. Had I done that, had I acquired amnesia, some people probably would have wanted me to be, I would have still been the Minister of National Security.
It was interesting that Sharmain asked you a moment ago if you were given resources to assist you in part of what you tried to work with. Clearly, if we have 10% here, either you don't have the resources or there is not the political will, I ask you.
Yes, it was the latter. And it was something that was very blatant. In fact, there are actually persons in cabinet that will tell me what I'm doing is going to affect us in election.
Tell the truth.
And everything is about election. Everything has to do with the votes. And I was never into the votes. I will see situations that will take place, even like glass bottles. We did the data for Carnival. We said glass bottles should be banned. The police said it should be banned. Ministers will say, no, let's not do it, because if a man doesn't have a card in his hand, he wouldn't vote for us. And that is where it is we have the difference in understanding the importance of just doing your job and the votes will come. If you put the votes in front of doing your job, well, then it is that you would not be able, you're going to fail. And if you fail as a minister, you will fail as a government. My job was not to worry about the votes. My job was to do what was politically correct.
I sounded like a new convert in church when I say tell the truth, because at the end of the day, that is the bottom line, is it not? It is the political will. It is the politicking of all the problems here that's really exacerbating this one. Because if we are aware that 10% is here illegally, we really know people who can tell us where everybody is.
Yeah,
you must have some people like the employers we referred to earlier who are saying to the relevant ministries, don't touch this, don't touch that.
Oh, definitely. And I had no intention to turn a blind eye. If it is that, say there's a businessman who realize that if it is we remove these illegal immigrants that they have, it's going to affect their business, which can affect the economy, which can affect everything else. This is not what my intention was. My intention is, listen, if you know that you have illegal immigrants, go forward, regularize them, let them pay taxes, let them have that opportunity to be a resident of this country, and do not have them there being used as illegal, as indentured laborers. And by doing that, it will assist us in understanding the number of persons we have, where they are, what it is that they are doing. It was costing the state billions of dollars annually because of these persons not paying taxes. It was costing us billions of dollars as well by us having to look after the well-being of persons who we could not account for. It was costing us billions of dollars also by some of these persons being involved in criminal activity. So we are talking about several $billion being lost annually by persons by these 100,000 not paying taxes, utilizing the state resources, and some of them being involved in major criminal activities.
So in fact, what you're saying, if I am to extract, we know who you are, we know where you are, but we're having problems with your protectors.
Yep, definitely. And my job, I pulled the plug on it and I said, listen, this is going to happen. So which is why members of the business sector attacked me, the Samuel Barata. I will love to Napuna. I will love them come forward and explain to me why you have a problem with me trying to deal with regularizing persons who are illegal immigrants. The reason why they opened their mouth was because they were basking in the success and the rewards that they have by businessmen having an illegal immigrant. It means that they will be paying them less. They will not have to pay corporation tax. They will not have to pay other taxes. So it is a benefit to me financially to have you as an indentured laborer and to treat you like a slave. And I had no intention to do that because that, again, is condoning criminal activity.
You're having brunch at 107.7. The former Minister of National Security makes a wonderful omelette, and that means he broke some eggs. We continue doing that.
Be that as it may, in all fairness to the businessmen, has there been anything else done? They have explained why there is this labor shortage, this deficiency in minimum wage workers. Yes. Right? Why then hasn't this, what you have done or had done, work in alongside an effort to upgrade that workforce to be able to make that labor available locally?
It had to do with just basic slackness based on both on government and the business sector. If I'm a businessman and I have 50 persons who are illegal immigrants, come forward and do your job and send the documents to the Immigration Department. But again, because the Ministry of National Security was so lax and not efficient in trying to get the documents regularized in time, sometimes it will take years for persons to be given a work permit, a minister's permit, a tax visa exempt. Many times, I usually would have worked on 18 to 20 hours a day at times throughout the night from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. dealing with all of these immigration forms that will just be stockpiled. And because of that, businessmen will say, listen, I know it's going to be difficult for us to get those persons regularized, so let me just go ahead and do it. Then there was also the concern of an illegal aspect of persons paying people to try to get persons with work permits and to get work visas as well.
But the reality is that while they come and they work, as you say, as indentured laborers, okay, because they're paid sometimes below our minimum wage, we have a workforce that is idle. We have, yes, some people are unskilled, but there are efforts to get them to be skilled, as well as this has impacted seriously on the construction industry in Trinidad.
Yes.
Apart from Chinese
Correct.
construction workers coming in, workers from other islands as well, and that is not good for us at all.
Well, no, because Trinidad and Tobago is becoming sort of like the Dubai of the Caribbean, and because of it, we have reached a point where the 3% of persons unemployed are really unemployable, persons who do not even want to work or do not care about working. So people who say that they can't get a job right now in this country, it is not true. It's just that some people, because of pride or whatever, they do not see certain jobs that towards their liking. And because of that, it is mandatory now for the business sector to try to import labor. We don't have a problem with that. That is the best way to try to develop the country at this time. If it is, we need to import to bring in 100,000 more immigrants to assist in the development of our country, because this is a fast developing country. But you cannot and should not do it by having them as illegal immigrants. Do the documentation, have them regularized, and do not allow them to be here illegally.
I wanted, just as we are trying to wrap up this hour now with former Minister of National Security Gary Griffith, note that Mr. Griffith, you were speaking in the wrong tense. You keep saying we are, right? You were.
well, I hope that the policies that I had, will not just be shelved. It is something that is mandatory. It cannot. We had problems for too long, and by putting it by closing that Pandora's box, it is not going to help the situation. At times, you have to do what is right, and not what you feel it is to be done for politics' sake. And I think when it is we do what is right, the success will then come. So I do hope that those policies will continue. And it is the only way that we can have a good, safe country. And by doing that, I think it is what the country wants. Sometimes people are just ignorant of what is required. So when people initially attacked me for doing this, as several other things that I did, armored personal carriers, when people said, well, why are you doing that? We're wasting money to save the life of a police officer or soldier. People said that we shouldn't spend $1 million. Those are the things that, again, it's an education awareness program that I was doing to bring to the country. I was trying to bring national security to the 21st century in this country.
Well, we respect that. We respect the work that you've done, especially opening this Pandora's box of illegal immigration, how it affects us across the board. And at least 2 of the calls that we got this morning, Mr. Bishop and Gary, came from Trinidadians being on the receiving end of what they think would be the negative effects of it, and on a personal level. And that's a reality on the ground, and that's what we have to deal with every day. And that's, as one of the callers said, we are looking for solutions. Unfortunately, he's not in a position to give us that right now. He's tried, he's put his bit in. So we thank you very, very much for giving us this insight.
It was good to have you here. I actually ran out of time. I did want to ask you about the lack of speed boats to stop folks bringing stuff in.
I could tell you quickly again, there's a massive national security policy of a maritime wall. It was not the concept of OPVs, but to have interceptors, very high-tech interceptors from the United Kingdom. You can go online, XSMG. It will beat any boat in the Great Race in this country. It is the type of vessels that we are also going to get to ensure that it could handle the type of waters. We acquired hostile vessels that were defective. We are getting vessels from Holland now that will secure the Gulf of Paria. We're getting UAVs, helicopters, putting GPS on all these vessels. So it's going to be a proper maritime lockdown to protect our shores from the illegal ports of entry. But as we have discussed, the legitimate ports of entry can be just as dangerous if we do not secure it.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us this morning.
My pleasure.
I hope that your team wins.
They would.
They would, huh? Yeah, like your West Indies team did last time. Have yourself a great day. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.